Hey family, it's Auntie Sherre here. I have so much on my mind. I'm smiling, but it's one of those, what in the world kind of smiles. I'm thinking about, I'm looking at these news headlines, and one of them has to do with the mentally ill. What are we going to do about the mentally ill? I mean, you had this guy, Anthony Warner, that went downtown and set off a bomb in the middle of downtown Nashville. And then you read these reports from the mother and different ones who said that, there were some red flags there, some signs there. And now I'm looking at this situation with the coronavirus. There's this pharmacist, I'm reading this right here. There's this pharmacist who was arrested on charges that he intentionally sabotaged more than 500 doses of the COVID-19 vaccine. And this was in Wisconsin. And he was 46 years old. He worked the night shift at a medical center and had twice removed a box of vials with the vaccine in it from the refrigerator for a period of 12 hours, rendering the vaccines that most of us are in a hurry to get to, and he rendered them useless. But when you read on down, I'm going to scroll down here, and it talks about how a month before this happened, he told his wife, the world is crashing down around us. He purchased 30 days worth of food rations for his wife and his kids and said that, the world is crashing down and we got to be prepared for that. And she was worried about him losing his job. He said he was stressed. And so on December 6th, the woman said her husband picked up the children and dropped off a water purifier, a large bucket of powdered milk, and 2 30-day emergency buckets of food. And he said, if you don't understand by now that I'm right and that the world is crashing down around us, then I must be in serious denial. He continued to say that the government is planning cyber attacks and plans to shut down the power grid. And even the 6-year-old said that the dad had told him, the child, this is not our home, heaven is our home. Now, Christians don't see a problem with that. I don't see a problem with that from the Christian perspective. But when you look at the context of this madman, he says, this is not our home, heaven is our home. That could equate to a plan to send them there faster than God decides. And he says, all the bad angels and the devil are going to burn in the lake of fire forever. This woman was so concerned about her safety that she moved out of the house. Now, I could read on, but my question is, if she was so concerned about her safety that she moved out of the house, and she had filed this in an affidavit with the courts, who's watching these documents in the court? Are the police paying attention? Are the legal officials paying attention? These are things that need to be given to the public. These are things where the right people need to come out and put red flags on stuff. Now, there used to be a time with the mentally ill where they were mistreated. They were just placed in an asylum. And you see it on some of these movies with people who are mentally ill in these asylums, with people screaming with their hair standing all over their head and being thrown breadcrumbs for rations for food. And back in the 1800s, that's kind of how it was. And then at one point, you started to see protections being put in place for the mentally ill. And by the 70s and 80s, there were rules put in place that protected the mentally ill. And I wholeheartedly agree with those protections, because stats have shown, I've even interviewed experts that have shown that mentally ill are more likely to be injured by so-called normal people than the mentally ill hurting other people. However, there are some issues here. We have people walking around who have mental illnesses that are serious enough to pose serious dangers to the people around them. And I'm just wondering out loud, if we have all of these laws in place to protect the mentally ill, where are the laws and how up to date are those laws to protect innocent people from the mentally ill? And why aren't more measures in place to pay attention when people say crazy things like, I'm going to burn this place down, or the world needs a bomb put on it? Things like that. We need to pay attention now. We need to take those things seriously. It shouldn't take a downtown Nashville bombing for us all of a sudden to be on alert. We have to be aware that we're living in treacherous times, and it's time to pay attention to that. And if you are mentally ill and you know you're dealing with some challenges, don't be ashamed to go get help. Don't be resistant or rebellious about going to get help. And I know sometimes our systems don't support getting help. Sometimes there are even financial barriers. I mean, people who suffer with mental illness and drug addiction, it is hard to find help for them because they have financial barriers. And those who have that money like that, they can just go into a place, have a place to stay, have a roof over their head, and get treatment. Whereas if you don't have money, then you got to pretty much be relegated to going to some of these organizations that, bless their hearts, they do voluntary work and they do the best they can with what they have. There are places through the Salvation Army and United Way. They do a great job. But for those that need a higher level of help with licensed professionals, therapeutic, comprehensive help with medication, we got to do something about it. But one thing I feel that we can do as citizens, we don't have to become Karens, but we do have to be more vigilant and more aware of our surroundings and pay attention to people, what they're saying and what they're doing. Not get into their business, but pay attention and report it when you see people are crazy. And right now during this pandemic, a lot of people are crazy. And I know crazy is not the politically correct word, but hey, we got to do something about this. We got to report these things when we see them and not come out after 20 people have been killed to say, oh yeah, he was kind of weird. Come on now. Not trying to hurt you, just trying to help you. I'm Auntie Sherre. You be blessed.